Relics of Ruin. Unearthed Horrors of Zak Bagans' Las Vegas Museum Chapter 1. The invitation. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange hue over the city skyline. The rooftop bar was buzzing with chatter and laughter, but in one corner, a group of 5 sat in a semicircle, their conversation punctuated with bursts of laughter and nostalgic sighs. Clara, with her raven black hair cascading down her back, raised her glass. To old friends and new beginnings, she toasted, her hazel eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Nathaniel, a tall man with a rugged beard, chuckled, and to finally getting together after what feels like a lifetime. Lillian, the petite blonde with a pixie cut, nodded in agreement. It's been too long. I've missed this. Beatrice, with her fiery red curls, smirked. Well, if Oliver hadn't decided to gallivant around the world for his soul-searching trip, maybe we would have met sooner. Oliver, the last of the group with sandy brown hair and a mischievous glint in his eyes, held up his hands in mock surrender. Guilty as charged. But hey, I brought souvenirs. The group laughed, reminiscing about their college days, the pranks they played, the late-night study sessions, and the unforgettable memories they created. As the evening wore on and the sky darkened, Oliver reached into his bag and pulled out a stack of ornate envelopes. I almost forgot, he began, handing one to each of his friends. I received these a few days ago. Thought it would be fun if we all went together. Clara opened her envelope, her fingers brushing against the thick, velvety paper. Inside was an invitation with intricate Gothic designs bordering the edges. The words, "You're invited to Zak Bagans' Las Vegas Museum," were embossed in gold. Lillian's eyes widened. The haunted museum? The one with all those cursed artifacts and ghost stories? Oliver nodded, excitement evident in his voice. Yes. I've heard so much about it. They say it's one of the most haunted places in the world. And with Halloween just around the corner, I thought it would be the perfect adventure for us. Beatrice raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. Haunted museum? Sounds like a tourist trap to me. Nathaniel, ever the logical one, chimed in. I've read about it. Some of the stories are unsettling. There's this Dybbuk box, supposedly the most haunted object in the world. And then there's the staircase from the Indiana Demon House. It's not just about the artifacts. It's the history and the tales behind them. Clara, intrigued, leaned forward. It does sound fascinating. And it's been ages since we did something adventurous together. Lillian hesitated, biting her lip. I don't know, guys. I've always been sensitive to, energies and stuff. What if something attaches to me? Oliver reached out, squeezing her hand reassuringly. We'll be together, Lil. Nothing's going to happen. And if you feel uncomfortable, we leave. No questions asked. Beatrice sighed, rolling her eyes playfully. All right, I'm in. But if I see one ghost, I'm out of there. The group laughed, the atmosphere lightening. They spent the rest of the evening discussing their plans, the excitement building. Little did they know that this seemingly innocent trip would change their lives forever. As they left the bar, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending a chill down their spines. The city lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the streets. And somewhere, in the distance, a lone wolf howled, as if heralding the beginning of a chilling tale. Chapter 2. First impressions. The sun was a mere sliver on the horizon when the group arrived at the entrance of Zak Bagans' Las Vegas Museum. The building, a grand old mansion, stood tall and imposing, its darkened windows reflecting the dying light. Vines crept up its stone walls, and the once grand entrance now looked worn and weathered. Beatrice, ever the vocal one, whistled. "Well, it certainly looks the part. Straight out of a horror movie." Oliver chuckled. "That's the spirit, B. Embrace the spookiness." The heavy wooden doors of the museum creaked open, revealing a dimly lit foyer. As they stepped inside, a cold draft greeted them, causing Lillian to shiver. "It's so cold," she murmured, wrapping her arms around herself. A tall, slender woman with raven black hair and piercing blue eyes approached them. Dressed in a vintage black dress, she looked as if she belonged to a bygone era. "Welcome to Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum," she began, her voice soft yet chilling. "I am Alara, your guide for the evening." Nathaniel, always the curious one, immediately began snapping photos, his camera flashing, illuminating the dark corners of the room. "This place is incredible," he whispered to Clara, who nodded in agreement. Alara led them through a series of winding corridors, each room filled with artifacts and relics. "Each item here," she began, "has a story, a dark history. Some are cursed, some possessed, and some, well, some are better left untouched." As they moved from room to room, Lillian felt an inexplicable pull, a force drawing her towards a particular section of the museum. She hesitated, her heart racing. "Guys," she whispered, "do you feel that?" Clara, sensing her friend's unease, reached out, squeezing her hand. "Feel what, Lil?" Lillian shook her head, trying to shake off the feeling. "I don't know. It's like something's calling out to me." Alara, overhearing their conversation, turned to face them, her blue eyes searching Lillian's. "The museum has a way of connecting with certain individuals. Some are more sensitive to its energies. If you feel drawn to a particular artifact, it might be trying to tell you something." Nathaniel, ever the skeptic, scoffed. "Or it could just be our minds playing tricks on us." Alara simply smiled, her gaze never leaving Lillian's. "Perhaps. But the spirits here are very real, and they have stories to tell." As they continued their tour, Nathaniel's camera captured strange orbs and shadows, things that weren't visible to the naked eye. He frowned, examining the photos. "That's odd," he murmured, showing Clara. "Look at this." Clara leaned in, her eyes widening. "What is that?" "It looks like a figure." Nathaniel nodded, his excitement evident. "And these orbs? They're said to be manifestations of spirit energy." Beatrice, peering over their shoulders, rolled her eyes. "Or it could just be dust." Oliver chuckled, always the skeptic, B. As the tour came to an end, Alara led them to the museum's main attraction, the Dybbuk box. The room was colder than the rest, the air thick with tension. Lillian felt the pull again, stronger this time, drawing her closer to the box. Alara, sensing her unease, whispered, "Be careful. The Dybbuk box is said to be the most haunted object in the world. It's believed to contain a malicious spirit." Lillian nodded, taking a step back. "I can feel its energy. It's overwhelming." The group, sensing the gravity of the situation, decided to leave, thanking Alara for the tour. As they stepped outside, the weight of the museum's dark history weighing heavily on their minds, they couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. Nathaniel, reviewing his photos, paused, his face pale. "Guys," he began, his voice shaky, "look at this." The group gathered around, their eyes widening in horror. In the photo, behind them, stood a shadowy figure, its eyes glowing red, a malevolent grin on its face. Beatrice, her skepticism gone, whispered, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" The night was darker than before, the wind howling. As the group made their way back to their car, the museum's haunting presence lingering in their minds. Little did they know that this was just the beginning of their paranormal adventure. Chapter 3. The Dybbuk box. The Dybbuk box room was dimly lit, the only source of light being a single flickering candle placed beside the cursed artifact. The box itself was unassuming, a simple wooden container with Hebrew inscriptions, but the atmosphere around it was palpable. A heavy, oppressive energy that seemed to suck the warmth out of the room. Lillian, despite her earlier reservations, felt an inexplicable pull towards it. Each step she took felt like wading through thick mud, her heart pounding loudly in her chest. As she neared the box, a cold touch, like the fingers of a ghost, grazed her hand. She gasped, pulling back, her eyes wide with fear. Alara, the guide, noticing her reaction, approached her with a look of concern. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice soft. Lillian nodded, swallowing hard. "It's just, I felt something. Like a cold touch." Alara's gaze shifted to the Dybbuk box, her expression grave. "This box," she began, "is not to be taken lightly. It's believed to contain a Dybbuk, a restless, malevolent spirit from Jewish mythology. The box has a dark history, one filled with pain and suffering." The group listened intently, the weight of Alara's words settling heavily on their shoulders. "The box was discovered in an estate sale," she continued, "belonging to a Holocaust survivor. The owner claimed it was responsible for a series of nightmares, illnesses, and unexplained phenomena. Those who've come into contact with it have reported seeing shadowy figures, hearing disembodied voices, and even being physically harmed." Lillian, her curiosity piqued, asked, "Why keep it here? If it's so dangerous?" Alara sighed, her gaze distant. "The museum serves as a warning, a reminder of the dangers of meddling with the unknown. The box is sealed, its spirit contained, but its energy can still be felt." The group, sensing the gravity of the situation, decided to move on, leaving the Dybbuk box and its malevolent presence behind. But for Lillian, the connection had already been made. That night, as the group settled into their hotel rooms, Lillian's sleep was plagued with vivid nightmares. She found herself in a dark, endless void, the silence deafening. Suddenly, a series of haunting images flashed before her eyes. Faces twisted in agony, shadowy figures reaching out to her, and a voice, deep and guttural, speaking in a language she couldn't understand. She awoke with a start, drenched in sweat, her heart racing. The room was dark, the only source of light being the soft glow of the city outside. She tried to shake off the nightmare, dismissing it as a result of the day's events, but the voice lingered, echoing in her mind. The next morning, Clara, noticing Lillian's pale complexion, approached her with concern. "Are you okay, Lil? You look like you've seen a ghost." Lillian hesitated, her voice shaky. "I had a nightmare. It felt so real, so terrifying." Clara, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Well, that's what you get for visiting a haunted museum." Lillian forced a smile, but the fear in her eyes was evident. "It's just, I heard a voice, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. It felt like it was trying to tell me something." Clara, sensing her friend's distress, hugged her tightly. "It was just a dream, Lil. Nothing more." As they prepared for the day, Clara noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. On Lillian's back, just below her neck, were strange marks, resembling symbols. Symbols that looked eerily similar to the inscriptions on the Dybbuk box. Clara, her voice barely above a whisper, called out to Lillian. "Lil, what are these marks?" Lillian, feeling the area Clara was pointing to, froze. "What marks?" Clara, grabbing her phone, took a photo, showing it to Lillian. The color drained from Lillian's face, her eyes wide with horror. I don't know. I've never seen them before." The group, sensing something was amiss, gathered around, their expressions a mix of concern and fear. Nathaniel, ever the logical one, tried to find a rational explanation. Maybe it's an allergic reaction? Or a rash? But Clara, her gaze fixed on the symbols, knew better. These are the same symbols from the museum. From the Dybbuk box. The realization hit them like a ton of bricks. The box, the nightmares, the symbols, it was all connected. Lillian, the fear evident in her voice, whispered, "What's happening to me?" The group, their bond stronger than ever, vowed to find answers, to uncover the truth behind the Dybbuk box and its malevolent spirit. But little did they know that their quest for answers would lead them down a dark and dangerous path, one filled with twists and turns, where the line between reality and nightmare would blur, and where the past would come back to haunt them in ways they could never have imagined. Chapter 4. Shadows of the past. The morning sun streamed through the hotel room's curtains, casting a golden hue over the room. But the beauty of the dawn did little to alleviate the tension that hung in the air. The group, seated around a table, looked at each other with a mix of concern and determination. Nathaniel, his laptop open in front of him, began, "There's more to that museum than we realized. Apart from the Dybbuk box, there's another artifact that's garnered a lot of attention." Beatrice, sipping her coffee, raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Nathaniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "The staircase from the Indiana demon house." Oliver, his curiosity piqued, leaned forward. "Demon house?" Nathaniel nodded, his fingers typing rapidly. "Yes. It's a house in Gary, Indiana, that's been the site of numerous paranormal events. The staircase, in particular, is said to be a hotspot for activity." As Nathaniel spoke, images of the house and the staircase flashed on the screen. The house, dilapidated and abandoned, looked straight out of a horror movie. The staircase, with its creaky steps and peeling paint, seemed to hold secrets of its own. Beatrice, her skepticism evident, scoffed. "So it's just an old staircase. What's so special about it?" Nathaniel, ignoring her comment, continued, "There have been reports of shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and even physical attacks. One family, in particular, claimed that their daughter was possessed after spending time in the house." The group exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Nathaniel's words settling heavily on their shoulders. Lillian, her voice barely above a whisper, asks, "Do you think it's connected to what's happening to me?" Before Nathaniel could answer, Beatrice let out a gasp, her eyes wide with fear. The group turned to look at her, their expressions a mix of concern and confusion. Beatrice, pointing to a corner of the room, whispered, "There. There's a child. Standing right there." The group followed her gaze, but all they saw was an empty corner. Oliver, trying to calm her down, said, "There's nothing there." But Beatrice, her gaze fixed on the corner, shook her head. "No. I saw her. A little girl, in a white dress, with dark eyes. She was pointing to the staircase. The room was silent, the only sound being the soft hum of the air conditioner. Lillian, her voice shaky, asks, "What does she want?" Beatrice, tears streaming down her face, whispered, "I don't know." But she looked sad, lost. Oliver, ever the researcher, began typing rapidly, his fingers flying over the keyboard. There has to be an explanation. A connection. After what felt like hours, Oliver finally spoke, his voice grave. "I found something. A story about a family that lived in the demon house. The Ammons family. They claimed that their daughter was possessed after spending time in the house. And there's a mention of a little girl, in a white dress, who was often seen on the staircase." The group exchanged uneasy glances, the implications of Oliver's findings weighing heavily on their minds. Nathaniel, his voice filled with dread, whispered, "Do you think the spirit of the little girl followed us?" Beatrice, her face pale, nodded. "I think so. And I think she's trying to tell us something." The group, realizing the gravity of their situation, decided to take action. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. Lillian, her determination evident, said, "We need to go back to the museum. We need to find out what's going on." The group nodded in agreement, their bond stronger than ever. They were in this together, and they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, as a team. As they left the hotel room, the sun casting long shadows on the ground, they couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. The spirit of the little girl, her presence felt but not seen, lingered in the background, her story waiting to be told. And as the group made their way to the museum, the wind howling and the trees rustling, they knew that they were about to uncover secrets that had been buried for years. Secrets that would change their lives forever. Chapter 5. Possession's grip. The Las Vegas Strip buzzed with life, neon lights illuminating the night. But inside the hotel room where the group resided, a palpable tension hung in the air. Lillian, once the gentle soul of the group, had become increasingly unpredictable. Her once bright eyes now appeared distant, often glazed over, and her laughter, which used to be infectious, had turned into soft, eerie murmurs that she whispered to herself. One evening, as the group sat together discussing their next steps, Lillian suddenly began humming an unfamiliar tune, her gaze fixed on a blank wall. Clara, concerned, approached her. "Lil? Are you okay?" Without turning, Lillian responded in a voice that wasn't quite her own. "She's here with us." "Can't you hear her?" Nathaniel, trying to maintain a semblance of calm, interjected, "We need to find out more about these artifacts. There has to be a reason why this is happening." Clara, her worry evident, nodded. "I agree. We need answers." The next day, Clara and Nathaniel visited the local library, hoping to consult historical records and perhaps find a historian who could shed light on the museum's artifacts. As luck would have it, they met Mr. Albert Whitaker, a frail old man with a wealth of knowledge about Las Vegas's darker history. Listening intently, Whitaker shared tales of curses linked to the museum's artifacts. "Many of these items," he began, his voice shaky, "have been tied to dark rituals and tragic events. They carry with them the weight of their past, and sometimes, that weight can become too much to bear." Back at the hotel, Beatrice and Oliver were experiencing the weight of that past firsthand. That night, as the city lights shimmered outside, they were jolted awake by a soft, eerie chanting. Following the sound, they found themselves outside Lillian's room. The door was ajar, and as they peered inside, a chilling sight met their eyes. Lillian, her body rigid, was levitating a few inches above her bed. Her eyes were rolled back, revealing only the whites, and she was speaking in a dialect neither Beatrice nor Oliver recognized. The room was cold, the air thick with tension, and the soft glow of the city lights outside seemed to be swallowed by the darkness within. Beatrice, her voice trembling, whispered, "We need to do something. We can't let this continue." Oliver, his face pale, nodded. "We need professional help." The next morning, the group, their resolve stronger than ever, decided to seek the help of a renowned local exorcist. They had heard tales of Father Dominic, a priest with a reputation for dealing with the most severe cases of possession. As they sat in the dimly lit room of the old church, Father Dominic, a tall man with piercing blue eyes, listened intently to their story. When they finished, he sighed deeply, his expression grave. "This is no ordinary possession," he began, his voice filled with concern. "The spirit that has attached itself to your friend is ancient, powerful. But with faith, we can save her." The group, their hope rekindled, nodded in agreement. They were ready to do whatever it took to save their friend, to free her from the grip of the malevolent spirit that had taken hold. And as they left the church, the sun casting long shadows on the ground, they knew that they were about to embark on a journey that would test their faith, their friendship, and their resolve. A journey into the heart of darkness, where the line between the living and the dead would blur, and where the battle for one's soul would be fought. Chapter 6. Seeking solutions, the Las Vegas sun was unforgiving, its rays piercing through the gaps in the curtains of the hotel suite. But inside, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The group had gathered around a large wooden table, its surface covered with a deep purple cloth. At the head of the table sat Madeline, a renowned medium known for her ability to communicate with the other side. Her silver hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her piercing green eyes seemed to see right through you. Beatrice, ever the skeptic, whispered to Oliver, "Do you really think she can help?" Oliver, his gaze fixed on Madeline, replied, "We have to try, B. For Lillian's sake." Madeline, sensing their unease, began, "I understand your skepticism. But I assure you, the spirits are very real, and they have messages they wish to convey." Without further ado, she lit a series of candles, their flames flickering in the dimly lit room. The air grew cold, and a sense of unease settled over the group. Madeline began chanting in a language none of them recognized, her voice rising and falling in a hypnotic rhythm. As the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere in the room grew more oppressive. Suddenly, Lillian, her body rigid, began speaking in a voice that wasn't her own. "Why have you disturbed us?" "Why?" Madeline, her expression calm, replied, "We seek answers. We wish to help Lillian." The voice, deep and guttural, responded, "She is ours. She has been chosen." Madeline, her gaze fixed on Lillian, asked, "Chosen for what?" The voice, filled with anger, replied, "To pay for the sins of the past. The artifacts, they are cursed. And she is the key." The group exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the spirit's words settling heavily on their shoulders. Madeline, sensing their fear, continued, "How can we break the curse? How can we free Lillian?" The voice, its tone mocking, replied, "There is a ritual, ancient and powerful. But it requires a rare artifact from the museum. The Eye of Horus. Without it, she is doomed." As the séance came to an end, the group, their resolve stronger than ever, decided to retrieve the artifact. Nathaniel and Clara, being the most resourceful of the group, volunteered to embark on the mission. The museum, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight, looked even more imposing than before. The duo, equipped with flashlights and a map of the museum, made their way inside. The air was thick with tension, and every creak, every shadow, sent shivers down their spines. As they navigated the winding corridors, they encountered a series of supernatural challenges. Mirrors that reflected distorted versions of reality, rooms that seemed to shift and change, trapping them in a never-ending maze, and shadowy figures that seemed to be watching their every move. But Nathaniel and Clara, their determination unwavering, pressed on. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the room where their Eye of Horus was displayed. The artifact, a golden pendant with a blue gem in the center, seemed to pulsate with energy. As Clara reached out to grab it, a series of loud bangs echoed through the room. The duo, their hearts racing, turned to see a group of shadowy figures blocking their exit. Nathaniel, thinking quickly, used his flashlight to create a diversion, allowing Clara to grab the artifact. The duo, their mission accomplished, made their way back to the hotel, the weight of the artifact heavy in Clara's hand. The group, relieved to see them, gathered around, their hope rekindled. Madeline, her expression grave, began, "The ritual will not be easy. The spirits are powerful, and they will not let go of Lillian without a fight." But the group, their bond stronger than ever, nodded in agreement. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to free their friend from the grip of the malevolent spirits that had taken hold. And as they prepared for the ritual, the city lights shimmering outside, they knew that they were about to embark on a journey that would test their faith, their friendship, and their resolve. A journey into the heart of darkness, where the line between the living and the dead would blur, and where the battle for one's soul would be fought. Chapter 7. The ritual. The room was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. The scent of sage and incense hung heavy in the air, creating an atmosphere of reverence and anticipation. At the center of the room, Lillian lay on a makeshift altar, her body still, her breathing shallow. Madeline, her expression focused, began laying out the tools needed for the ritual. A silver chalice filled with holy water, a dagger with a hilt made of bone, and a series of ancient runes, their symbols etched deep into the stone. Beatrice and Oliver, having been tasked with gathering the ingredients for a protective potion, returned with a collection of herbs and roots, their scents pungent and earthy. Madeline, nodding in approval, began grinding the ingredients together, the sound of the mortar and pestle echoing through the room. As the potion took shape, Madeline began chanting in a language none of them recognized, her voice rising and falling in a hypnotic rhythm. The room grew colder, the air thick with tension, and a sense of unease settled over the group. With the potion complete, Madeline instructed the group to form a circle around Lillian, their hands joined, their focus unwavering. "This ritual," she began, her voice filled with gravitas, "will not be easy. The spirit that has taken hold of Lillian is powerful, ancient. But with faith, with determination, we can free her." The group, their resolve stronger than ever, nodded in agreement. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to free their friend from the grip of the malevolent spirit that had taken hold. As the ritual commenced, the atmosphere in the room grew more oppressive. Lillian, her body convulsing, began speaking in a voice that wasn't her own, her words a mix of threats and pleas. The room was filled with the sound of disembodied voices, their tones mocking, their messages filled with malice. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The group, their grip on each other tightening, tried to remain calm, but the fear was evident in their eyes. From the shadows, a figure emerged, its form shifting and changing, its presence malevolent. The spirit from the Dybbuk box, its anger palpable, confronted the group, its voice filled with rage. "Why have you disturbed me?" "Why?" Madeline, her expression calm, replied, "We seek to free Lillian, to break the curse that binds her." The spirit, its tone mocking, responded, "She is ours. She has been chosen." The room was filled with the sound of laughter, the spirits reveling in their power, their control. But the group, their bond stronger than ever, refused to back down. With Madeline's guidance, they began chanting, their voices rising in unison, their words filled with power and purpose. The spirit, sensing the strength of their resolve, began to falter, its form shifting and changing, its presence weakening. As the battle raged on, the room was filled with the sound of clashing energies, the forces of good and evil locked in a battle for Lillian's soul. The group, their voices growing louder, their determination unwavering, continued to chant, their words cutting through the darkness, their power undeniable. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The spirit, defeated, vanished into the shadows, its presence no longer felt. The room, once filled with tension and fear, was now bathed in a soft, golden light, a sense of peace and calm settling over the group. Lillian, her body still, her breathing shallow, began to stir, her eyes fluttering open. The group, their relief evident, gathered around her, their bond stronger than ever. Madeline, her expression filled with pride, whispered, "You did it. You freed her." The group, their journey far from over, nodded in agreement. They had faced the darkness, and they had emerged victorious. But they knew that there were more challenges ahead, more battles to be fought. And they were ready. Chapter 8. Unearthed Secrets. The Las Vegas skyline was painted with hues of orange and pink as dawn broke, casting a gentle light upon the city. Inside the hotel suite, the atmosphere was a stark contrast to the serene morning outside. Lillian, though free from the spirit's grasp, lay frail and traumatized on the plush bed. Her once vibrant eyes now held a distant, haunted look. Beatrice sat beside her, holding her hand, trying to offer some comfort. "It's over, Lil," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You're safe now." Lillian, her voice barely audible, replied, "It doesn't feel over, B. I can still feel them, watching." Oliver, ever the researcher, had been poring over books and online articles about the museum since the ritual. "There's more to this museum than we realized," he began, his tone grave. "These artifacts, they're not just cursed objects. They're tied to specific spirits, souls that have been wronged in the past." Nathaniel, intrigued, asks, "What do you mean?" Oliver hesitated, then continued, "I found mentions of a diary, said to be hidden within the museum. It details the origins of these cursed artifacts and the spirits tied to them." The group exchanged glances, realizing the significance of this discovery. Clara, her determination evident, said, "We need to find that diary. It might hold the key to putting these spirits to rest." That night, armed with a plan, the group made their way back to the museum. The building, under the cloak of darkness, seemed even more foreboding. Using the map they had, they navigated their way to the room where the diary was said to be hidden. After what felt like hours of searching, Nathaniel, his flashlight illuminating a dusty corner, let out a triumphant cry. "I found it." The diary, its pages yellowed with age, was bound in worn leather. The group gathered around, their anticipation palpable, as Nathaniel began to read. The diary belonged to the museum's original curator, a man named Edgar Holloway. He had been obsessed with the occult, traveling the world in search of cursed artifacts. But as he collected these items, he realized that they were tied to specific spirits, souls that had been wronged in the past. As Nathaniel read, the group learned of the tragic tales behind each artifact. The Dybbuk box, tied to a spirit named Leah, a young girl who had been wronged by her community. The Eye of Horus, linked to an ancient Egyptian priest who had been betrayed by his followers. And the list went on. But the most chilling tale was that of the Indiana demon house staircase. It was tied to a spirit named Abigail, a young girl who had been sacrificed in a dark ritual. Her spirit, filled with rage and pain, had latched onto the staircase, seeking revenge. The group, realizing the gravity of their situation, knew that they had to confront these spirits directly. They needed to put them to rest, to break the curse once and for all. Madeline, her knowledge of the occult invaluable, began outlining a plan. We need to conduct a ritual, one that will allow us to communicate with these spirits directly. But it won't be easy. They're powerful, and they won't go down without a fight. The group, their bond stronger than ever, nodded in agreement. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to put an end to the curse that had plagued them. And as they prepared for the final showdown, the city lights shimmering outside, they knew that they were about to embark on a journey that would test their faith, their friendship, and their resolve. A journey into the heart of darkness, where the line between the living and the dead would blur, and where the battle for their souls would be fought. Chapter 9. Confrontation. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the city of Las Vegas. The bright lights of the Strip seemed distant and muted as the group made their way back to the museum. Each member was armed with protective charms, amulets that Madeline had provided, and the knowledge they had gleaned from the diary. The museum's grand entrance loomed ahead, its ornate doors appearing more menacing than ever. Taking a deep breath, Beatrice pushed them open, the creak echoing ominously through the vast halls. The group stepped inside, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. As they delved deeper into the museum, the atmosphere grew thick with tension. The air was charged, and every shadow seemed to move, every artifact seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. But the group pressed on, their determination unwavering. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the hall, extinguishing the torches and plunging the museum into darkness. Whispers filled the air, disembodied voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The spirits were making their presence known. Oliver, clutching his amulet, whispered, "We need to stick together. They'll try to divide us, to prey on our fears." One by one, the group began to face off against the spirits. Nathaniel, his face pale, confronted the spirit of the ancient Egyptian priest. The air around them crackled with energy as they locked eyes, the spirit's anger palpable. But Nathaniel, drawing on his inner strength, managed to banish the spirit, sending it back to the realm from which it came. Clara and Beatrice, working together, faced the spirit of Abigail, the young girl tied to the Indiana demon house staircase. The spirit, her form shifting and changing, tried to lure them into a trap, but the duo, their bond stronger than ever, managed to outwit her, using their protective charms to send her back to the afterlife. But the most intense confrontation was yet to come. Lillian, her newfound strength evident, stepped forward to challenge the spirit from the Dybbuk box. The spirit, its form ethereal and otherworldly, floated before her, its eyes filled with rage. "Why have you disturbed me?" it hissed, its voice echoing through the hall. Lillian, her gaze unwavering, replied, "You have no power over me. I am free." The spirit, its anger growing, lunged at Lillian, but she was ready. Drawing on the knowledge she had gained from the diary, she began chanting, her voice rising in a powerful crescendo. The spirit, its form disintegrating, let out a final, anguished scream before vanishing into the ether. The group, their ordeal finally over, gathered together, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced their fears, confronted the spirits, and emerged victorious. As they made their way out of the museum, the first rays of dawn breaking on the horizon, they knew that they had been forever changed by their experience. They had delved into the heart of darkness, faced the unknown, and come out the other side stronger and more united than ever. And as the city of Las Vegas came to life around them, the group, their journey far from over, looked to the future with hope and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 10. The final sacrifice. The morning sun had barely risen, casting a soft golden hue over the city. The group, having just emerged from their confrontation with the spirits, felt a momentary sense of relief. But as they made their way out of the museum, a chilling voice echoed through the vast halls, stopping them in their tracks. "You may have won the battle, but the war is far from over," it hissed. "To break the curse permanently, a sacrifice must be made." The group exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the spirit's words settling heavily on their shoulders. Madeline, her expression grave, spoke up, "It's true. The spirits are bound to the artifacts by a powerful curse. To break it, a life must be given in exchange." The group, their faces pale, struggled to process the revelation. The thought of sacrificing one of their own was unthinkable. But as the reality of their situation set in, they realized that they had to make a heart-wrenching decision. As they debated their options, Lillian, her voice filled with resolve, spoke up, "It should be me. I was the one who was possessed, the one who brought this curse upon us. It's only right that I be the one to end it." The group, their emotions raw, tried to dissuade her, but Lillian was adamant. "It's the only way," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Madeline, her voice filled with sorrow, began preparing for the ritual. The group gathered in a circle, their hands joined, their focus unwavering. As they began chanting, the atmosphere in the room grew thick with tension, the air charged with energy. Lillian, her body bathed in a soft, golden light, stepped forward, her expression calm, her resolve unbreakable. As the ritual reached its climax, she let out a final, anguished scream, her body disintegrating into a million particles of light. The group, their hearts heavy with grief, watched in stunned silence as the curse was finally broken. The spirits, their bonds severed, vanished into the ether, their presence no longer felt. The museum, once a hub of paranormal activity, was now eerily silent, its dark legacy a thing of the past. But the group, their bond stronger than ever, knew that they had paid a heavy price for their freedom. As they made their way out of the museum, the city of Las Vegas coming to life around them, they knew that they would never forget their ordeal, the sacrifices they had made, and the friend they had lost. And as they looked to the future, their journey far from over, they realized that while the curse may have been broken, its effects would be felt for generations to come. The museum, its dark legacy a thing of the past, would forever serve as a reminder of the power of the unknown, the dangers of tampering with forces beyond our understanding, and the sacrifices that must be made in the name of love and friendship. Chapter 11. Aftermath. The city of Las Vegas, with its bright lights and bustling streets, seemed almost surreal to the group. The stark contrast between the vibrant city and the dark, haunting memories of the museum was jarring. The friends, forever changed by their ordeal, found solace in each other's company, mourning their losses and reflecting on their harrowing experiences. Beatrice, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, gazed out of the hotel window. "It feels like a dream," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "A nightmare that we somehow managed to wake up from." Oliver, ever the pragmatic one, replied, "It was real, B. We faced something that most people can't even fathom. And we came out the other side." The museum, once a popular tourist attraction, had become a silent testament to the supernatural. Word had spread about the group's ordeal, and fewer visitors dared to step foot inside its hallowed halls. The artifacts, though still potent with dark energy, seemed dormant, as if the spirits had finally found some semblance of peace. Lillian, having made a miraculous recovery, felt a deep sense of responsibility. She decided to document their experiences, hoping to warn others of the dangers that lurked within the museum's walls. With the help of Nathaniel, she began writing a book, detailing their journey from skepticism to belief, from fear to courage. As the days turned into weeks, the group realized that they couldn't stay in Las Vegas forever. They had lives to return to, families to reunite with. But the bond they had forged during their ordeal was unbreakable. Clara, her voice filled with emotion, spoke up, "We've been through hell and back together. We can't just go back to our old lives and pretend like nothing happened." Nathaniel, nodding in agreement, replied, "We won't. We'll always have each other, no matter where life takes us." The group, realizing the truth in his words, made a pact. They promised to reunite every year, to honor the memory of their lost friend and to celebrate the bond they had forged. As they parted ways, the city of Las Vegas fading into the distance, they knew that they would always be connected, bound by their shared ordeal and the promise they had made to each other. And as they looked to the future, their hearts filled with hope and determination, they realized that while the scars of their ordeal would never truly fade, they had each other. And that was all that mattered. Chapter 12. Epilogue. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the city of Las Vegas. The once bustling streets were now quiet, the neon lights of the Strip casting a soft glow over the buildings. In a secluded corner of a rooftop bar, a group of friends sat, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candlelight. It had been years since their harrowing ordeal at the museum, but the memories were as fresh as ever. The friends, older and wiser, had come together to honor their pact, to reminisce about their adventure and to celebrate the bond they had forged. Beatrice, her hair now streaked with silver, raised her glass in a toast. "To us," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "To the memories we've made and the challenges we've overcome." The group clinked their glasses, the sound echoing in the stillness of the night. They spoke of their lives, the paths they had chosen, and the adventures they had embarked on. But the conversation always circled back to the museum, to the spirits they had encountered, and to the friend they had lost. The museum, once a popular tourist attraction, now stood abandoned. Its grand entrance, once welcoming, was now boarded up, the windows shattered. But tales of its hauntings persisted, whispered stories of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena. Lillian, her book now a bestseller, had become somewhat of a celebrity. Her account of their ordeal, raw and unfiltered, had resonated with readers around the world. It served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of tampering with forces beyond our understanding. As the night wore on, the friends, their hearts heavy with nostalgia, began to say their goodbyes. They promised to stay in touch, to always be there for each other, no matter where life took them. But as they parted ways, a chilling wind swept through the streets, carrying with it a hint of another mystery, another adventure waiting to be uncovered. Oliver, ever the researcher, had stumbled upon a tale of a haunted mansion in the heart of New Orleans. The story spoke of vengeful spirits, of dark rituals, and of a curse that had plagued the mansion for generations. The group, their curiosity piqued, exchanged glances, realizing that their journey was far from over. They had faced the unknown once before, and they were ready to do it again. And as they made their way through the streets of Las Vegas, the city lights shimmering in the distance, they knew that they were about to embark on another adventure, one that would test their faith, their friendship, and their resolve. The end, or is it? We hope you have enjoyed our storytelling offering tonight. Please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to be alerted of future weekly additions to our collections. Paranormal Untold Stories.